Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Pi Chat Live. My name's Nick Cuthbert. I'm the Director of Insight at the Pi. And for the next 30 minutes, I'm delighted to be talking to Sonya Singh. Sonya, welcome.
Thank you, Nick.
Sonya
And it's
is,
wonderful to be here.
it's an absolute pleasure to have you, Sonya. Sonya is the founder and CEO of SIEC Education. And has been counselling students since 1995, vastly experienced in providing advice to students who want to study abroad. A huge kind of presence in India, but also present across many countries in that counselling service. And I'm absolutely delighted that we could get you onto a Pi Chat Live, Sonya. I know you've been quoted in the Times Higher this week. You are vastly experienced. Many people in Australia know you because you are part of the Association of Australian Education Representatives in India. But in the UK, SIEC are less well known. And I've been on many panels with you at conferences, and I know you have a lot of expertise and you're very straight talking about the mindset, the psychology of students in India. And the things that are happening there. So you are very, very welcome. I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you, Nick. And thank you for the introduction.
My pleasure. So this is a live webinar, Sonya. So our audience here, we encourage them to tell us where they're from. So please use the chat function at the side of the screen, everybody. I can see James and Anesh and Cheryl here joining. So yeah, tell us where you're from. If you have any specific questions for Sonya, she is more than happy to answer them. So please use the question mark tab at the side of the screen, and we can get to those questions later in this session. We've also prepared a few polls here to supplement the conversation we're going to have. So if people want to have a look at the kind of graph tab, the poll tab at the side here, there are 3 questions we would like our audience to answer. And they are, number 1, are you expecting study abroad demand to slow down from India? Really, in the next year, people are voting already. No's coming in there. I can see. We'll come back to these results in a minute. What are the priorities for Indian parents when sending kids to study abroad? So, what are the priorities that you think that parents feel about their students? And the third one is, what percentage of the Indian market does your recruitment strategy cover? And then, yeah, incremental percentages there, because a huge subcontinental sized country and very, very important. So, Sonya, let's frame this. India, the world's largest population now, the 3rd largest economy. In the Pi, we've covered at length the growth in international school sector, the growth of the middle class income. And it is the biggest source country for students studying abroad. We've seen that in the figures now for the US and the UK. But, and you are all too aware of this, there has been huge policy disruption in Australia and Canada, caps to the number of students getting study permits for those countries, and disrupting the choices of Indian students. So you are closest to them, Sonya. Tell us a little bit about the mindset at the moment, the psychology of students, how they're thinking about studying abroad.
Well, the first of all, we've got to understand the changing dynamics of Indian economics. Uh, Earlier, I mean, India being the 3rd largest economy, students have varied choices. So that's part one of the picture. The second part also is that India, the Prime Minister and the Indian Finance Minister and the government is actually in talks with a lot of governments across the world to set up campuses in India. So earlier, when there were no choices in India, now there are choices to study in India. And all these come into play in international student recruitment. The bottom line is that despite having these choices, the demand for studying abroad in India is still going to grow. Simply for the reason that there are varied reasons why students want to study abroad. And education or getting a degree is just one of them. Like I've mentioned on a lot of forums, that Indian students are very, very spoiled. the parents, I mean, they live in joint families or with domestic help, and and the parents want them out in order to become more responsible, uh, get their hands dirty in terms of living for themselves, independence, cultural diversity. So it's not just the degree that the students and the parents are looking for. And that is why the undergraduate market from India is really growing and will continue to grow. Keeping that in mind, because prosperity is there,
Mhm.
affordability is there, which wasn't there about 10 years ago, the demand in student expectations has risen. So the demand from their international university partners is much higher than the earlier cohort of students who were going. Social media has actually made it very, very easy for them to access information. So the strategy has to take into account the economic growth of India, the diversity of India, the cultural diversity, and the universities actually have to strategize. What kind of students do they want? Are they looking at quality? Are they looking at volumes? All those things combined will drive strategy. But the market is there, it is going to grow, but it is going to grow in a very, very strategic manner. It cannot be that you throw an ad and people will start walking in.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's break some of these down. I'm seeing lots and lots of people here who we know across the sector, a lot of UK representatives here tuning in, because this is a golden opportunity, isn't it, for the UK? Because of the caps to Canada and Australia, there is a huge opportunity to grow market share from India. Okay, so you mentioned there the changing kind of policies of higher education in India itself. So GIFT City people will be familiar with, but also we've seen Deakin open a campus, the Australian university, but now Southampton going to open a campus in India as well. So are you saying that these campuses won't disrupt the demand to study abroad for Indians? You think that it will serve a different segment of the market?
Yes, and that is a very, very data proves that Indian students who want to study abroad will continue to go abroad. These campuses and these universities will actually compete head on with private Indian universities.
Yeah.
So they're not going to compete with the IITs or the top Indian universities, but the universities like Sarda University, Ashoka University. So a student actually is going to, who wants to study in India, be in India, because there are opportunities, they may belong to business families, will continue to study in India. And this is where campuses like Deakin, Southampton will come into play. But a student and a family who's decided to go abroad will go abroad. So that's part one of the question that you've asked. In addition to that, India is also going to attract students from the bordering countries, so Sri Lanka,
Yes.
Bangladesh, Nepal. Those are the three countries that India is actually looking into, and these universities are going to be looking into to recruit students inwards from these countries.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia could be another option. So the study abroad market it's a very, very different kind of a diaspora of students who still want to study abroad. So these are not disruptors. These are just a local competition that's going to be created.
Yeah. So similar to the offshore campuses we see in Dubai, attracting other South Asians or
Yeah.
from around the region coming to these campuses. Okay. So I can see there's quite a few people from Wales and from Scotland here. And actually, if you look at the statistics of the UK as a whole, Scotland doesn't do quite as well as England in terms of attracting Indian students. And so it can grow its market share. I think it's keen to improve recruitment from India. So when we're building our strategies for India, if we look at the statistics around immigration, we've seen the Punjab and Kerala in particular have huge growth. So people are looking at this decision of, do we go to tier one cities? Do we go to traditional agents and big offices, or do we go to tier two cities or to these other regions where we might get bigger growth? What's your view, or how do you advise universities on how to build that strategy for such a big country?
Well, I think in order to understand where the students are coming from, first of all, I'll also share some data with you,
Mm-hmm.
which is basically of what is going to be the competing factor for studying abroad. There were 117,254 startups in India. These are new businesses as on 31st December 2023. This is data published by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Now, they created 12.42 jobs in India. The states that have the highest number of startups is Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Delhi, and Karnataka. So a typical student who's wanting to study abroad is going to compare the opportunities in these states and in these cities and opportunities that he's going to get when he studies overseas. And that is where a lot of play comes into at the postgraduate level. Because typically, if a student's finding good opportunities in India, they will not go abroad to study because they've got their own home, family, and they're getting good wages. But the other interesting fact is, and that also comes from the ministry, is that only 45% of fresh graduates from Indian universities are actually what the industry needs. Out of all, and that is where international education plays such a big role. So the first thing is that they'll have to move beyond tier 1 cities. In these states, move to tier 2, tier 3 cities. When you're recruiting students from these cities, you've got to make sure that your international offices are equipped to deal with these kind of students because they have lesser exposure, they need more hand-holding. Are you prepared to do that? So then you build a strategy around that because it can't be, because a metro student is going to be very different to a tier 2, tier 3 student. That's part one. Part two, the students also need post-study work opportunities. If your university, the country that you're in, the state that you're in, offers these opportunities, students are going to avail that and get work experience. So they get a degree from a UK institution, they get work experience, their market value in India goes really up. And that has led to reverse migration now. A lot of students are studying abroad, they are getting their work experience, and then they're applying for jobs back home in India. And that has never happened before. And this definitely, according again to the government figures, is going to go higher and higher. So yes, tier 1 cities will give you one kind of student, tier 2 and tier 3 cities will give you another kind of student who will need much more support. And that is the key to student retention. I've heard this number of times that students come and run away. These students, because they belong to smaller cities, are used to attention, are used to being noticed. Somebody kind of, but if once they go overseas to study at a large university and they feel that, they're just a number and nobody really cares, then they start comparing costs at cheaper institutions, which are smaller, which actually are able to woo them away. So it's not that the students got with an intention to go to a cheaper institution, but when they find no support system onshore or the classroom experience is not up to the level, then they move. So it's a combination of everything,
Right. Again, so much to unpack there. So just on the reverse migration part, there are here we've heard that the changes to the salary thresholds for graduates are having a big impact, that it's going to put people off because the graduate route can only take you so far, and then you have to get a job of with a high salary. And so people are saying this is going to curb demand, but this idea of actually getting qualified and then going and getting a good job in India and starting your career is really positive news, that's a possibility. And as you say, if you build that into your strategy and build it in with alumni, that works really well. And we've seen associations like NISAO doing that very well, connecting talented Indian alumni with recruitment strategy. Okay. Now you talked about, the difference of different tiers of city, but how best to build those routes to market with so much area to cover and so many students to cover. Let's talk a little bit about in-country reps and also the difference, you touched on it as well, about hand-holding, about B2C quality. So talking to students directly as opposed to through agent networks and some of those sorts of things. So which one are we going to cover first? In-country reps. Let's do in-country reps first.
Okay. Right. So India being such a huge market and a diverse market, in-country reps are essential. So I'll put that on the table very, very clearly. But the role definition of in-country reps has to be very clear. Are they your salespeople? Are they flying the flag for your university? Do they look the part? And do they have the information that is required in order to impress upon parents who are going to spend 30, 40,000 pounds on education? So it's very critical to know your in-country reps and what projections are they doing. That's part one. The second part is, despite the fact that you have in-country reps, do not make them your only eyes and ears in the market. The university international offices, senior management, the directors, PVCs, DVCs, have a role to play here that engage with your principal agents at least twice a year. The third thing is, please seek feedback about your in-country reps. Universities who assume that the in-country reps are doing all the right things, I mean, there are some great in-country reps and there are some terrible ones too. How would you know what is happening if you don't seek anonymous feedback from your agencies? So there is a sense of responsibility that has to go both ways when you're recruiting people in India in order to represent your university. So does that answer your question, Nick?
Yeah, it does. It really does. I think the things we're seeing is that institutions building university level strategies for countries like India because of the importance and because of all of the resource needed to build those relationships. But also we're seeing, this move towards outsourced admissions or to building in-country rep presence in the region. But what you're saying is that really you need to keep the relationship alive and keep talking to the agents directly and partners on the ground, as well as managing staff directly. So as part of that management process, you need to close that communication loop to make sure you're understanding how other people see those reps and their performance.
Yes, and in-country reps move. They change jobs, they change universities. Once the rep moves, that means you've lost all the relationships to another institution if he or she's moved, because you've not reached out to your principal agents throughout their recruitment cycle. So I think it's very, very important to engage with the principals of agencies at least twice a year to understand from there what the challenges are, how do they formulate, because you've got on the ground information through your agents, through your trusted partners.
Yeah.
And you can collect that information along with your in-country reps information and then formulate a much more robust strategy than just depending on one source. And that's unfortunately what's happening now.
Yeah.
Everything's kind of pushed to in-country reps. You talk to them, you interact with them, and some of them do not even have the experience that's required to formulate strategy.
Yeah. So instead of using them on strategy and admissions or marketing, it's about building this brand and community through direct communications with students where possible to support them.
Yeah.
So let's go to that then. So you've been doing direct student counseling since the 90s. You can articulate really well the difference between somebody who wants to support a student in the business compared to the commercial aspect. We know that agent networks can build recruitment numbers, can make people a lot of money and so on. But just tell us about the difference in experience for the student in doing that.
Well, the first thing is that this industry is built on counseling students. So that's one. I mean, from an Indian perspective, when a child is born, the parents say for two things: education, marriage. There's no other third thing. And when you are giving that decision to a platform, it's not about buying a plane ticket. It's about a life. So the dehumanization of students, when companies are looking at only the bottom line and the profitability, reduces the student to a data point. And when the student gets reduced to a data point, people see this money being made, and you get a lot of people who we call the B2B agents or the sub agents getting onto the bandwagon for a short term. They've got no skin in the game. The main agent is the one who's taking all the responsibility. So even if they are rotting the student and the system, nobody wins, neither the student nor the agent, and they shut shop and they go away. Yeah. So this dehumanization of students because of this Greed suddenly, I mean, everyone wants to make a lot of money, go public, sell their companies. That's the agenda. In a B2C organization like ours, where we talk directly, we've been there for 30 years. I mean, one of our ex students is now the head of Australia in India. And you feel a sense of pride in their achievement. And because you're there, the faith in the parents and the community is that we're not going anywhere. We've invested resources, we've invested money, we do training of our career advisors, and we answer calls even at 8 p.m., at 9 p.m. at night if there's a student calling.
Yeah.
No platform is able to do that. So, to compare international education recruitment to a hotel business or to an airlines business is
Yeah.
very trite. It does not match up.
Yeah. I think there'll be so many people agreeing with you. There's no real shortcut to quality other than supporting the student, that offering one-to-one support that can really, really help them settle and succeed. As you can see, Sonya is great at speaking her mind. If you have questions, please put them in the tab here, and I'm sure she can answer them. On accreditation then, because there's been a lot of focus from all of these destinations about integrity of the system and how we regulate agents and train them. So I know SIEC, you have AirC accreditation, which is the US qualification, which costs quite a lot of money to acquire, let alone go through the training process. You are British Council certified, so all your staff have the British Council training. And as we've already said, you are a former president of the Agents Association in India and also a member of the current organization there. Tell us your views on training, and also could you tell our audience a little bit about how India itself is regulating qualifications and things? So DigiLocker is playing a big part in this.
Yeah. Right. So first I'll talk about these accreditation bodies. I think self-regulation is the key.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example, there are only not more than about 180 to 200 members who are part of ARI. And this is the body of agents who actually self-regulate and want to do the right thing. And what it has done is it has given ARI a platform to engage with Department of Home Affairs, Austrade, and AEI.
Yeah.
Because if you go in as individual agents to talk to any of these peak government bodies, there is no audience. And in fact, I met Matt, who heads the AEI in India yesterday, and he said, with ARI, because of these changes, that the policy changes and a lot of bad press that has gone on for Australia, they were able to send out a positive messaging across, because then the agents control the rest of the network and are able to send out positive messaging. So that's part one of it. And because ARI and AirC do take action against rogue agents, they are either suspended, and it's a name and shame game. So the self-regulation is where otherwise governments cannot regulate agents in different countries. Yeah. So belonging to these bodies is very, very critical. Having said that, the Indian government's digitization of practically everything is going to make, so at this point of time, DigiLocker is a Government of India initiative where we've got this Aadhaar card, which is kind of the identification number for every Indian. That would be, as soon as a child is born, you get an Aadhaar card. You need an Aadhaar card in order to open a bank account, in order to get a telephone connection, in order to get a mobile connection. Now, that is linked to all your achievements throughout your life as a student. So DigiLocker captures a student identity through Aadhaar card, and all CBSE, Central Board of Education, ICSA results, all results are now attained through DigiLocker. So a student will not get a separate mark sheet or pass certificate. There are more than 300 universities that are registered with DigiLocker. So when you are getting documents verified, automatically verified by DigiLocker, you know that academics are genuine. Universities that are not listed on DigiLocker, there is a private company called DigiVerifier who actually do physical verification of documents, and most of the agents are good agents, are subscribing to these services. The next step for DigiLocker is to actually start verifying bank loans, bank accounts, income tax statements, and that's going to happen in the next 6 months. So when you are working with good agencies who are following these practices, you're practically certain that you're getting a good quality, genuine student.
Yep. Yeah. So there is a really clear pathway to quality then, really. If students are studying or qualifying from certain universities or through certain exam boards, then DigiLocker is really a secure way of verifying those results. And as you say, that's going to go on into verification of funds. And also the agents that are established and using those things, that's really quite a secure loop. You don't then have to be looking at transcripts and trying to assess it yourself. So for people who are really risk averse and want that quality pipeline, it exists in a very robust way. Okay, I'm aware of time. I'm just going to jump to the question so we can make sure we answer everybody's questions. So Sarah is asking, what about students choosing markets in Europe? So we're hearing a lot about Indian students choosing other markets, but particularly European markets like Germany. How is that different to choosing to study in the USA, Canada, UK, Australia, etc.? And are you seeing this uplift of demand? So we're talking Ireland, Netherlands, Germany, New Zealand, all of these kind of outside of the top 4 countries.
Well, if you look at the data, the noise is more than the actual results.
Mm-hmm.
So 60% of students who went to Germany to study went to study free of cost. So they're not full fee paying students. And very small number of students are choosing private German institutions because the quality is not up to the level that the Indian students want.
Yep.
So the volumes are still going to go to the top 4 countries. Canada, at this point of time, students don't want to even talk about it. They don't want to touch it. It's not because of the caps, but it is because of the bad press that's coming out of Canada from existing students about housing shortages, about, being mistreated, about not getting. So there's a lot of bad information coming from Canada.
Yeah.
Within this scenario, I think UK and USA are really going to be the 2 biggest markets going forward from now, because Australian policy is still not very clear. What are they going to do with the capping? What's going to, and students are waiting and watching. As a result of that, the US numbers have already gone up. And in 2025, the latest information from US consulate is that they're going to give a special window to students who want to apply for student visa rather than just one window for all kinds of applications. So US is gearing for that. And I think UK is actually sitting in a very good spot to ramp up the volumes till Australia does not get its act together. And
yes, I completely
but the
agree.
rest of the but the rest of the European countries are getting a very small percentage of the total numbers, and it's not going to grow very big in any case.
Yeah. So I would say that most countries, excluding the US, are capped by accommodation, really. They can't grow too quickly. They can't build the infrastructure to take large numbers of students quickly. So all of these alternative destinations will face those challenges quite quickly, even with smaller growth. Okay, next question then. So someone here, Ashish, is asking, with B2B giants entering the Indian market, what challenges do you think traditional Indian agencies like yours will face or are facing? How do you see the dynamics of B2B versus B2C evolving now? Something I'm interested in is we saw this huge investment post-pandemic, and so there was a lot of companies with cash to burn, which is hard to compete against. They've got money to market and attract agent networks and so on. But that's starting to wane. You're starting to see that cash burn slowing down, and some of these companies haven't really got the foothold that they'd have hoped to. So where do you see this going?
Ashish, they've had their day. It was a new industry. They were trying out new things. But if you look at the traditional agencies who've been there for the last 25 years, we are still there. And we're still doing quality, we're still doing volumes. And the interesting thing is that none of us even thought of going B2B because we knew that this business is not like any other business. You're not selling a shampoo or something that, your retailers can sell it. Everything has to be controlled because if you're looking at compliance, if you're looking at quality, and I think the policy changes happened because of the problems created by these big giants, because they had no clue as to what a quality student was. And I think they've had their day. I think they are going to fade out. And I think the investors are going to look at it in a long term sense that's not going to give them the kind of returns that they're looking at. Because the student acquisition cost, because of the compliance issues, is really, really high. And if you're going to be paying your sub agents 80% or say 90% commission, how are you going to survive? Where
Yeah.
is the money going to come from? So there are business dynamics to it as well, and there are service dynamics to it as well. And India is a word of mouth market. If you do give a good service, you will have people queuing up.
Yeah.
But
And
if it's just
that's
a commercial venture, it's not worth. Yeah.
and also as a business model, it's profitable because you've supported the student
Yeah.
and you earn the commission and the contracts
Yeah.
because of it. Okay, next question. So could I please ask you to refer to India being assessed as a high-risk country due to the high volume of fraudulent documents? This makes us reluctant to expand our market to India. There's this kind of uh, mixed picture in India. You have incredible wealth and incredible quality, but also, you have immigration, you have fraudulent documents, and so on. And it's kind of tarnished by that picture. Give us your view on this.
It all depends on the kind of agents you engage with and the kind of markets you're recruiting from. If you hold your principal agents responsible for every student that enrolls into your institution, you will see quality going up. The second thing is, are you setting realistic targets? If you're setting unrealistic targets and an agent wants to renew the contract, they'll try to send you volumes through every which way, which again does not work. So it is important to sit down with your agencies and look at realistic targets, target markets, and look at their compliance teams, because every good agency has an entire compliance team that looks at that actually verifies employment, academics, calls up the employer to find out if the work experience is genuine. All this exists. So you've
Yeah.
got to work with the right people who have these teams in place.
Yep. Again, no shortcuts, good service. And if you're seeing other people growing very quickly, it's not necessarily for the right reasons. Okay, so another question. What are your thoughts on the demand in India for academic summer schools that help students improve their portfolio and prepare for applications to top universities around the world? We are seeing preparation courses, foundations, pre-sessional English. A lot of these things are moving offshore into the core markets as a way of preparing students. Australia has done this very well, actually, during the pandemic, of keeping students invested in the idea of studying in Australia. Do you think it would work? Do you think there is a possibility for that to grow?
There's a huge appetite for that now, because Indian students are now looking at the top universities, and the parents, and like I said, because the undergraduate market will grow by about 40 to 50% year on year, much more than. So the parents want their children to be exposed. And because year 11 is not so rigorous in India, that is the year when they look at these short-term study abroad preparatory programs. But having said that, every student from India who wants to go to the UK wants to go to either Oxford, Cambridge, LSE. So, and a lot of parents want to give them that opportunity to go, see, and then decide. And that is, I think, a niche that can really be capitalized on.
Yeah, and that plays in as well to the growth of international schools and private schools across
Yeah.
South Asia, but definitely India. This
Yeah.
kind of the right preparation to get to the best schools. Okay, another question here. I knew we'd have loads. We are running over, but what about the students who are really good at studies and want to enhance their career by going abroad to study, but are not able to do so due to financial situations? Should universities give them a discount on tuition fees so that they can move abroad and enhance their lives? So, yeah, I mean, many universities offer generous scholarships now, often through agents and trusted routes to market. What are your feelings on the affordability of study abroad? Is it some of the problem here we've seen, as you alluded to earlier, is that some students can't really afford it. They can just about afford to get to those countries, and then if things change, they're suddenly stranded, or they're tempted to move and do something different because it's cheaper to do so. So yeah, where do you draw the line on affordability for studying in a country like the UK?
Well, you've got to look at very carefully the source of funds, and that's what we look at when we start screening students. That what is the family income and what are the family dynamics? Is the affordability really a reality? Because the banks do give out loans to students who want to study abroad, but the loan servicing becomes a major factor. So we look at a certain amount of income if the family has.
Mm-hmm.
And if a student is really, really brilliant, I mean, we've got students who come at 99% marks sometimes who've not got into good universities. We actually, on a case by case basis, encourage universities to start giving them some fee help or some scholarships in the beginning. And it can be tied into their academic performance as they go along. So don't give it in one go, give it year on year, and they have to meet those academic standards. And it works very well because the student could manage some funds but may not be able to manage all the funds. But if he's brilliant, he can actually contribute a lot to the university and bring in a lot against what the scholarship is on offer. And it helps student realize that, they're not just cash cows, that someone's looking at them as humans, that their hard work is paying off in some form. The Americans do it very well. I mean, some Indian students with an excellent SAT score or their GPA, which is very, very high, may get full scholarship from 3 to 4 American universities, and then the student chooses where to go. And that's what makes America so popular, because there's this possibility. Whereas the Commonwealth countries don't do the 100%, but if you do some part, which helps them with their living expenses or part of the tuition, it could go a long way.
Yeah. I think that's a really, really great advice, actually. Staggering your scholarships around academic attainment, then it keeps it focused on quality. Anch here is asking about discounts rather than scholarships, but in my understanding is really you can't have different fee levels for different nationalities. So you have to award discounts through scholarships, of which there has to be some sort of criteria for awarding those.
Yeah.
Sonya, we are out of time. Half an hour is never enough, so I always go over. My apologies to anyone who's left. This is can also be watched on repeat. Sonya, you split your time now between Australia, India, and the UK. Your daughter is here in the UK. For people to get in touch with you, how's best? We have the button at the bottom of the screen where people can register an interest with SIEC. But really, you are open to people just getting in touch with you on LinkedIn. If they have any questions, they need some advice about something, you're very open and approachable.
Yes, I just want to encourage everyone that we are all in this together. And the bottom line is student welfare. So it does not matter whether we have a contract, whether we work with you or we don't work with you. If you've got any question about India, any query, you seek advice or you want advice on your strategy, please feel free to get in touch with me or my team. We've got a UK registered office, which is SIEC UK, and we can share those contact details with Nick and he can forward it. Because if we collaborate, if we communicate, we can make this industry much better. And it has no strings attached to it.
There you go. I think that's the perfect offer for everybody. If you are looking to build an India strategy, then take my word for it. There is no better person than Sonya to help you and advise you. She's so experienced and such a lovely person as well. So Sonya, thank you so much for your time. Thank you to our audience. Really great questions, really great interest. Please share the link to the recording of this if you feel like colleagues would benefit from listening to this as well. And yeah, until next time, thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everyone.